Yeah, own your data is kind of a big deal these days. It's really something that should be discussed. I'm glad that we
There
have,
she is.
you know, the expert here to tell us all about it.
So, Brittany, I don't know if you heard the brief intro, but singing your praises as of yesterday. Thank you again for joining that panel. That was great. All the things you're doing are really great, especially around the education side of things, owning your data and empowering people with knowledge so they really understand how to take their not only financial future into their own control, but also take control of your data, right? It's a big deal and it's all about education. So, really happy to hear you on day 2. You're closing it out for the Collective Intelligence Summit. Now, unfortunately, you're so good. We're going to invite you back to every one. So hopefully we get a resounding yes. So with that said, we're going to pass it over to you and really looking forward to what you have to say. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for having me back again. It's a pleasure to be here. I heard that you guys had a really great day with a lot of beautiful speakers, a lot of my favorite people that all of you guys got to hear from. So it's a pleasure to be able to close out today for you guys. Really, really glad to be here. As you guys may know, my name is Brittany Kaiser. I am the founder of the Own Your Data campaign and the Own Your Data Foundation. And I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit more about some of the work that I have been doing specifically in data ownership with some really incredible people, not just from the blockchain industry, but also from data protection and privacy. It's so nice to be able to talk about this at a blockchain conference because it's really blockchain technology and the people in the industry that first inspired me to look at the data industry in a totally different way. I mean, what you guys probably know is that, I've been at the intersection of technology and politics for a very long time. I got my start in tech by joining the Obama campaign headquarters in 2007 and was part of the team that helped invent social media strategy. And I spent about a decade after that helping organizations around the world learn how you can use data in order to produce scientifically valid communications results. How can you achieve your goals? And I was mostly working with human rights organizations and progressive politicians, environmental groups, human rights groups. So how do you achieve your goals using data? And from the very beginning, it was, the knowledge that the more you can find out about somebody, the better you can communicate with them. So that sounds like a concept that at first is inherently good. You can talk to people in a way that they engage with, the way that they understand. But once I spent quite a few years in the data science industry, so really the buying and selling and trading of personal data in order to build very accurate predictions about what people are most interested in, what they care about, that's really when I started to realize that the data industry has been built in a way that is what I like to call kleptocratic. Technologies over the past many decades have been built in order to take as much of our personal information from us without us fully understanding what that means. We don't really understand what's being taken, where it's going, by whom, who's holding it, what are they going to use it for. And what we've seen over the past many years is that it can fall into the hands of anybody. Anyone around the world can get access to your personal data, your most personal information, without you really being aware of it. And then you can't protect yourself or other people around you from how that data could be used either to your benefit or used against you, especially what we saw in the 2016, both Brexit and Trump elections. The way that data was used was to bring out kind of the worst parts of humanity, to drive our societies apart. So while I was still working at Cambridge Analytica, I got very involved in the blockchain industry. And I started to see ethical technologists that, yes, they had access to all of the same data sets as big advertisers always had, But the way that they were going about building their technology was to create systems of transparency, to create systems of empowerment, building technologies that actually allowed us to have ownership over our most personal and valuable information. And it was in 2017 when I really got involved in the blockchain industry that data was first valued as the most valuable asset on planet Earth. In 2017, The Economist told us all that data had surpassed oil and gas. So somehow we are producers of the world's most valuable asset, but legally around the world at that time, we didn't have any rights to our data anywhere. We had no rights of producing the world's most valuable asset, an asset class made up of just our personal information, but it has driven the building of most technologies around the world, and every organization, whether public or private, is using data to make decisions, or at least they should be, if they know what's good for them. Data drives internal decision-making, external communication, strategy building, and is the back end of really what drives everything that we do these days, especially in a time of coronavirus where we are now producing exponentially more data than we ever have before because we're leading completely virtual lives. So that means we're producing so much more of the world's most valuable asset. And over the past few years has been the first time where countries around the world are starting to think about how do we legislate and regulate data in a more ethical way. Because what we've seen is that if you give some technology executives free rein to choose how their technologies affect humanity, they don't make the ethical and moral choice by themselves, which is very unfortunate. So we've now had to do quite a lot of work on legislating and regulating how our personal information should be used. And what I believe and what everyone that I've ever spoken to in the blockchain industry believes is that we should have full ownership over that information. We should own our data. And what I really want to describe to you guys today is a little bit more about what that means and what are the fundamental components of data ownership and data rights, so that you can fully grasp why transparent technologies, new forms of encryption, smart contracting, blockchains, and just more ethical ways of data management make sense and are going to be so important for our future. So I think the first concept that we should really talk about is what ownership means. You know, you've probably heard or you know that in a human rights legal framework, we all have the rights to privacy. We have the right to keep certain information to ourselves as a human right, as a value. But in terms of what are we keeping private, the information about us, we do not have rights to most of that information. So how do we actually practically secure our privacy if perhaps millions of companies around the world own our personal information and we don't have the right to see what they have, to ask them to delete it, to ask them to not use it for certain purposes? What does that actually mean? So the most fundamental concept of data ownership is that you have full control over your data. You own it just like any other property. In fact, in the state of Wyoming right now, you own your data as, you own your digital assets as your intangible personal property. And what that means is that just like your house or your car, you have the rights to your personal information and who that's used by, where that goes. And it really, the legal concept of that, the easiest way to really land the plane for everyone is for me to say that I'm a big fan of the Airbnb model as a model that we could use for the future of data ownership. So if someone wants access to my data, just like they ask me on Airbnb for access to my house, they would tell me who they are, what they want to use it for, how long they're going to be there, and we're going to agree on a price and I'll get paid before I hand away the keys. So that is a data ownership model where I am actually leasing my property to someone for a period of time and I still retain full control over that. And if I've pre-agreed to certain terms and conditions, then that is what is going to be followed. The most important part of distributed ledger technology in this conversation is smart contracting, which, as many of you probably know, is a digital contract. So the terms and conditions that you set forth in Airbnb could be encoded into a smart contract, meaning that if someone is accessing your data through a platform like that, you would say, for instance, I agree for my data to be used for the next 12 months. I'm very happy to have my data sold to advertisers that want to sell me a new car or a new brand of toothpaste, but I don't want my data to go to any politicians, political organizations, law enforcement, for instance, and that should be your fundamental right. So when you hand away the temporary cryptographic access to your personal data, those keys will just allow access to your data for that period of time and for those purposes and use cases that you agreed to. So the next fundamental concept that is so important is that transparency and your opt-in. So transparency is knowing fully exactly what is being collected about you. Are you collecting my personally identifiable information, my first name, my last name, my physical address, my social security number? Do you need that type of information? Are you collecting my location data from other apps? Are you getting access to my photos, videos, access to my microphone and my camera? Because you know what? Probably most of the apps on your phone right now where you've never read the terms and conditions, you have given people access to all of that data. I mean, do me a favor, and after you listen to this talk, it doesn't have to be tonight, it's Friday night, but go and go and actually open up one of the apps on your phone and read the terms and conditions. You've probably never done it, but go and do it and see what you have actually agreed to. You will find that you will be shocked if you fully understand everything that they've even asked you for. And that's the big problem. Terms and conditions are usually 46 pages long, and they're written by very expensive lawyers in legalese to make you not understand what you are giving away. And most people just click them very quickly, and then you have entered into a digital contract where you've actually agreed to something very specific. And if you look all the way through, you're almost giving away your firstborn to some of these people. I mean, really access to everything. And you don't know who these people are, where the developers are located, what their intentions are, or what data contracts they have with other companies. Sometimes hundreds or thousands of companies are going to get access to this data too, not just for you to be able to use the app. So once you understand transparently what is being asked of you, that's when you can start looking at opt-in infrastructure. So what are you going to agree to? How complex can that get? I think that you guys probably noticed that since the passing of GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, which went into enactment January 1st, the only real comprehensive privacy legislation in the United States, in the state of California, that sometimes now when you go to websites, you will, instead of just see a big annoying box that says, we're going to collect your cookies, and your only choice is really to say, okay, now you have another option, which is, let me see my settings or let me look at my options. And that will start to tell you more in detail what they're going to take from you and who they're going to share it with. If you scroll all the way down and actually open up all of the menus, you'll sometimes see hundreds or thousands of companies that they're planning on sharing your data with. And now you have the option to opt out of that and to say, yes, I still want to access this website. And whether or not you allow cookies, you are, if you do decide to allow them, you can decide perhaps that you don't want your data to be shared onwards with other companies besides the site that you're actually trying to visit. And I think that's fundamentally so important to really not only understand fully what you're agreeing to, but have that option to opt in or opt out. So permission structures and traceability is really the next most important part of these concepts. And I just noticed my battery is a little low on my computer, so just give me one quick second while I plug that in. My apologies. Should have done that before we started. One moment, guys. And we are back in business. So permission structures and traceability. So what are you going to give people access to? And do you have the right to track and trace where it's going? You know, this was the entire fundamental problem that led to the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. If you guys don't remember exactly how that happened, the original, I suppose, straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the news media and the general public being really freaked out at what Facebook was doing and what Cambridge Analytica was doing with your data was when everybody found out that Facebook had a developer program where developers from around the world could pay Facebook for the ability to access everybody's data through something called the Friends API. And in order to get people to consent to giving you their data, they had to take a quiz or take join an application or a game, something like Farmville or Candy Crush. And as soon as you opted in and agreed for your data to be taken, the Friends API also took the data from everybody else in your Friends network. Your mom, your grandma, your friend next door, everybody in your Friends network. And so there's no legal structure anywhere in the world that allows me to consent on behalf of another able-bodied adult. Nobody else can give away my data. I have to consent on my own. So the Friends API fundamentally was flawed in terms of its compliance with any data protection laws that really existed at that period of time, and therefore over 40,000 companies had access to this API, and then those data sets were given to access to companies around the world, like Cambridge Analytica, where that data was used specifically in elections. And so when everyone found out that their data had been taken without their knowledge and shared with anyone and everyone for whatever purposes they deemed fit, that's kind of when the news completely blew up. And that is why it's so important to have permission structures and traceability in the back end of technology. Where are you going to allow your data to go, and who is it going to go to? And can I for sure confirm that that data has definitely been transferred to that individual? Can I confirm that they have or have not transferred it somewhere else? I mean, right now, in order to even tell that a company or organization is data protection compliant, you really have to do a forensic analysis of someone's database, because you don't know where data has gone, what is still there, what has been deleted, what has not. And that's what is very exciting about, public ledgers to me, immutable ledgers. So if there has been a transaction of digital assets, you can see that. That is permanent. Nobody can come in and delete that. So I know if a digital asset transfer has taken place, and I can tell where else it has gone as well. So this is a fundamental concept that is going to help us actually secure our data rights, where we have agreed for our data to go and what it's going to be used for. We can confirm that that has happened or not happened, and that's really important. Now, I would say the most exciting part of data ownership and data rights to me is that I really believe that data can and will be the great equalizer in society and in the world. We all are producers of the world's most valuable asset, yet there are some people around the world that wake up in the morning and don't have a store of value that they can exchange for food to feed their families, right? They don't have enough money, access to that value that they are creating for companies and governments around the world who are monetizing that data, and they don't have enough money to feed themselves. So a lot of people, when I talk about the monetization of your personal data, have a lot of questions about that, and I really want to address that. When I say you have the rights to monetize your own data, it means you own it. So just like your house on Airbnb, you have the right to at least at minimum, a dividend off of the monetizing that is happening with your personal information. So say for instance, my favorite topic, let's talk about Facebook again. So for instance, if I am producing data within Facebook, I perhaps might own 20 or 30% of the value of that data and have rights to what I've produced in the platform because it's my information. But because it is Mark Zuckerberg's platform and Facebook puts in the time and money to upkeep this platform and produce those data sets while I'm using Facebook, they would retain the other parts of the monetary value of that. So every time an advertiser pays Facebook, if I own 30% and Mark owns 70%, then yes, he still makes plenty of money off of my data, and I get a dividend that recognizes that that is my data, that I have rights to it, and then I am able to use that value to empower myself. You know, when people ask me about what is the value of our data, you know, why should we care about our data rights if our personal data is only worth, you know, cents on the dollar? You know, how many cents do we need to collect before this even makes sense to go through this whole process? Well, you know, Mark Zuckerberg likes to lie to us and tell us that our data is only worth $17 a quarter. So that sounds uninteresting. Well, I mean, first of all, that's not true, Mark. Our data is worth an exponential amount. It just depends where we decide to become data inputs to. Where is that data being monetized? How is it being monetized? But let's say, for instance, he's right. Our data that we produce in Facebook is worth $17 a quarter. Well, you know, there's over 2 billion people around the world that are living on less than $2 a day. So $17 will completely change the lives of billions of people around the world just off of the data that they produce in Facebook, let alone the data that is plugged in and an input and produced in all these other platforms and ways around the world. You know, I talk about this so often, and I spend all of my time trying to secure our data rights because of this possibility. You know, if we're only earning a couple dollars a week out of the data we make in Facebook, what if we become an input into our city for smart cities purposes? So I'm creating data in my car, I'm creating data with how I use public transportation, and I'm making sure that there is less traffic. I'm making sure that there are no more car accidents. I decide to share my location data with law enforcement so that they can help prevent the next mass shooting from ever happening, or prevent terrorism or violence. I could decide to share my medical data with medical researchers around the world so that they can cure diabetes and cancer and prevent coronavirus from continuing to spread and save lives all around the world. You know, I have a friend who is specifically working on the monetization of healthcare data, and I was recently told that in one diabetes study, because most data that healthcare researchers have access to are just the people who go to healthcare trials. These are usually 18 to 35-year-old young white males in college who are doing it for extra beer money, really. And those data sets mean that the way that we cure diseases and the way that we invent medicines is based off of a data set that is not applicable to most of the population. So women, minorities, medicines just don't work as well on us. It's so hard to get a diverse group of people to actually go to medical trials and complete the process. So this group of diabetes researchers said, if we can get somebody that qualifies for our study to come in for 6 to 8 weeks and produce medical data in our facility, that's actually worth $28,000 to us. Yeah, $28,000 exactly. So when Mark says your data is only worth $17 a quarter, he's, you know, not talking about the bigger picture. And unfortunately, too many people just hear the words coming out of his mouth and think, hey, this whole fight, the whole data rights movement is, you know, it's going to be too hard. It's not worth that $17 every few months. But think about it in the more exponential way and what that can look like. There's a lot of interesting blockchain projects that are specifically helping us to secure our digital identity. So we can say, this is us, here's my data that I am producing, and we can become a data input into marketplaces where we can choose where we want to start monetizing our data, what we feel comfortable with, then we can be earning money every single day in the way that Chris Hughes, the ethical co-founder of Facebook, talks about, and the way that Andrew Yang talks about. They're two of the world's biggest proponents of universal basic income, and two of the only people who have donated a lot of their own wealth in order to run UBI programs to see what it looks like if people are actually have access to money every single day. And that is something that works. They've proven so far in terms of productivity, quality of life. And I don't even like to call it universal basic income because it sounds like a handout. What I say when I'm talking about in terms of data rights and monetizing your own digital assets, then that's a universal earned income. Everybody has universal value for being a human being and being alive. And the amount of value that we produce every day in terms of data sets, in terms of the world's most valuable asset, is so incredibly important and valuable that we are earning an income just for our time, our attention, our data. And that is the most exciting and world-changing concept in data rights. And that's why everyone should be fighting so hard for this. I mean, it's really just, it's so important to think about the revolution that this can bring about in equality and access to justice around the world. And so I'll talk with you just for a second about a few other things that I think are important in this debate. Now, I guess I'm a big part of the privacy community, right? So it'll probably surprise you that I don't consider myself a privacy campaigner. Yes, I work to secure your right to privacy, but I'm actually not that interested in people keeping their data to themselves. That's everybody's own choice. If you want to keep your data private, you should have the rights and the technology and the education and tools in order to do that. But right now we don't. So the types of work that are really going on are to say, we would like you to secure your rights to privacy, but really we would like to enable you to share as much of your data as you could possibly feel comfortable with, so that we can solve a lot of the world's biggest problems. I mean, I'm not a privacy campaigner because I'm into radical transparency, if no one's noticed that, but I am really into artificial intelligence. AI and data science, I think, will solve a lot of the world's biggest problems that I was just discussing. We really have an opportunity to change the future with our data, and the algorithms that we put our data into to build a better life are why I want to encourage people to feel comfortable and secure in what it means to really own your data. You know, once you have that transparency and consent mechanisms and control and the technology in order to do it, then you can empower yourself, your family, your community with that value that you receive in return. So I suppose I'll quickly go over a few of the most basic concepts in some of the new laws that are securing our data rights, and that really is, you know, kind of both in GDPR and CCPA, the right to knowing where your data is being held, the right to erase, to correct false data, the right to correct the record, objection to your data being automatically processed by any organizations, the right to notifications of a data breach, so you know if you need to protect yourself with fraud prevention insurance or change all of your passwords yet again, which hopefully you all do on a very regular basis. You have the right to full disclosure over what's been collected about you in the past and objection to certain parts of it being used. You get to say who it's provided to, and you actually have legal recourse. So if you decide that your data has been damaged, then you can get that value back, you know, monetarily. And so I think one of the most important new developments in data protection law is really coming out because of coronavirus. So since we have all been trying as much as we can, whether we are you know, quarantining ourselves at home, or whether we're building technology for coronavirus contact tracing apps, or working on immunity passports, there's a lot of developments in AI, data science, blockchain technology, digital identity, tracking and traceability that will hopefully be able to stop and stem the spread of coronavirus. But what has happened is that the contact tracing apps were being built before any laws were passed about how that data could be used. So I helped write one of the first bills in the world to manage and regulate how this data is being used. It's Senate Bill number 8448 in the state of New York. And we were the first bill to drop, which basically regulates how that data is collected, how it's held, how long it's stored, what it can be used for, and most importantly, with the rise of mass protest movements around the world, and I completely support the right to peacefully assemble, but because in some places some of the riots became violent, law enforcement started using contact tracing in order to track protesters. Now, we have seen in many places around the world, specifically, if you guys can remember what happened in Hong Kong last year, that the way that some peaceful protesters are tracked actually gets in the way of them being able to exercise their human rights, their right to peacefully assemble. And so in our law, we banned the sharing of contact tracing data with law enforcement, and we also put anti-discrimination clauses in there to make sure that no one that is trying to fight for their rights could have their rights contravened and be targeted by organizations that are, I suppose, supposed to be keeping the peace, but sometimes are actually creating the opposite. So I know that's all the time we have for today, but I'm so glad that I was able to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this. Thank you for your support. If you want to know more about the work that we're doing at the Own Your Data Foundation, please go to ownyourdata.foundation and check us out. If you want to donate to our work, we would love that. You can even get one of these cool Own Your Data necklaces. We even have ones that hold a YubiKey. You can use them as two-factor authenticators to support our work. You can follow me on Twitter at OwnYourDataNow. And please watch The Great Hack on Netflix if you haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. And also, my book came out last year. It's now out in 13 languages around the world. It's called Targeted: The Cambridge Analytica Whistleblowers' Inside Story of How Big Data, Trump, and Facebook Broke Democracy. So it's not a light read for the beach, but I really hope that you guys all have the opportunity to pick it up sometime. Thank you again for having me, and enjoy your Friday night.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
The next one.
The rest of your time.
All right, everybody. Well, that's a wrap. That is the end of day 2 of Collective Intelligence. We had so many incredible speakers today. Just so delighted to have, Brittany close us out. What an incredible discussion and topic that she's covering, and really empowering people with understanding their rights. So I've made everybody a panelist who's left who wants to share their screen. Let's all get on if we want, if you want to share. And we can all say goodbye to the world. We're streaming all over the place right now. I know we had over 2,000 people yesterday from around the world listening in to all these incredible discussions. We have people like Emilio and Rhonda that are consistently here at our events, that are up into the wee hours of the night at our networking parties as well. We couldn't do this without you guys and our supporters and the people that really are proponents of everything that CoinGenius is doing. We're trying to democratize data, and we're trying to bring the tools necessary to help traders around the world to become smarter and more effective, take the emotion out, like Chris Weiss said, and control those emotions using people on the Genius Network that we've worked really hard over the last 2.5, 3 years in building this incredible network of people. Now I think all you guys see, the power of the network is really the secret sauce behind CoinGenius. We can't do it ourselves. There's incredibly smart people in this world, and we're just trying to connect all of us together in one place. Christina, any final thoughts?
I'm just blown away by everything that we have seen in the last 2 days. I guess my final thoughts are, please come join us. Please come see what CoinGenius is doing at coingenius.ai. See our analytics develop in coingenius.pro. Join our Discord for real-time updates, and you can ask questions to our team. Also follow the new Telegram channel that has trading insights. Hi. That has trading insights and whale alerts. We're doing some amazing things, and so are many of the other folks that are in the space in the Genius Network. And I can't wait to share all of this with all of you. As always, if you guys want to get a hold of me, it's Christina at coingenius.ai. And we look forward to hearing from everyone.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, reach out to info@coingenius.ai. Always happy to have a conversation. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever is most comfortable for you. We're having our next conference. We do this on a quarterly basis, right? Because we want to get access to the most relevant information possible so we can make more effective decisions. So the next one's at the end of September. That is going to be a big one. That's our Crypto State of the Union, where we're bringing together the top companies in the space, the top exchanges, to say why we deserve to be here in the top and what are we doing to collectively move this industry forward together. So that's going to be one that you don't want to miss. Thank you again to the CoinGenius team. I have the most incredible team in the entire world, bar none. Anybody can go head to head. You're not going to win. We have Thomas Barrett right here, our CFO. We just have so much support, and it's really, a testament to what we're trying to do here. It's needed. It's the connectivity, it's the data, and it's the trust. And if you look on our website, that's why we say we're the most trusted source of information in the crypto space, because nobody else was really doing it. So we wanted to be the first, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, geniuses.